freaking first cut. Golly.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the First Cut Podcast. It is Tuesday, November 28th, and we have got a doozy for you today, and it starts with the big cat himself. We'll be talking Tiger Woods. We'll be talking Hero World Challenge, and we'll be talking about the Player Impact Program. Shout out to Nate Lashley. But first, let's get to the stars of the show. I am joined by two of the best in the business. Kyle Porter, how are you doing?
I'm good, Patrick. Doesn't it, because I've been in the position that you're in before where you're hosting, every time you host, doesn't it give you a better appreciation for people like Jim Nance, people like Joe Buck, where it's just, it seems easy and it's so difficult.
I truly have no idea what I'm doing at the
moment. It's so hard.
Yeah.
Who's the Fox guy that does the MLB stuff? Kevin
Bogart.
Kevin, but he's very good, very good, and he makes it look way easier than it actually is.
Yeah, it is tough, but luckily I have you, and I also have Mark Immelman. Mark, how are we doing today?
Sweet, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate the glowing introductions there for Kyle and I hope you guys had a happy Thanksgiving. I had some time off, so back at it and good to be with you.
Yes, Thanksgiving was great. I'm still trying to work off the stuffing sandwiches after, the leftover sandwiches the day after. A lot of carbs, lots of carbs. And someone who doesn't eat carbs, at least that's how it appears, every Hero World Challenge when he's up there in his tight polo is one Eldrick Tiger Woods. The big cat was in front of the mic today, and he had a lot to say. One, about the state of the game. Two, about the state of his game. We're talking Jaybird. We're talking Rory McIlroy. There was a lot to take in from Tiger today at the Hero World Challenge. Kyle, the biggest takeaway from Tiger's press conference today in your mind was?
Well, I had two. One, I think is probably the obvious one that most people will run to, and it's just the fact that he said his goal, best case scenario, most optimistic outlook, is to play once a month in 2024. Now, I think people took that to mean like 12 times. I think in his mind it's just January through whatever, August or so what is that, 7 or 8? And so but still, like, that's 4 majors and then, 2 or 3 other events, which is way different than I think when he's been asked that question in the past, you would expect, well, we'll see how I feel, or we'll get to that when we get there in January or February. And he kind of laid the foundation for like, no, I'm going to play 8 times in 2024, which I did not expect. And I don't know if either of you guys expected it, but that came as a bit of a surprise. And then I think too, it was more subtle, Patrick, but he talked a lot about the behind the scenes stuff. He's obviously on the PGA Tour policy board now. And I thought he wasn't like laying out the negotiations, but he was a little more open than I thought. And it was very subtle, but he said, basically, how are we going to work the LIV schedule and the PGA Tour schedule together? And that to me was a tell of like, oh, LIV's not going away. Like they're trying to figure out how to make that. He didn't say like those exact words. Maybe you can pull up the quote, Patrick, for what he, like the specific words that he said. I don't want to attribute something to him that he didn't say specifically, but the implication was like, we're trying to make this work in conjunction with one another, which I didn't expect. I still kind of don't expect, but he obviously has a lot more information than any of us do. And I thought that was kind of a surprising part about his presser.
I do too. I think when you look at the schedule or possible schedule for 2024, the genesis makes sense, adding the Players Championship. And then I personally think those two and the 4 major championships, I kind of think that's all Tiger Woods really needs to do moving forward. Mark, what do you think about that?
I'm just so disappointed, Patrick. He won't be at the RSM Classic or Jackson.
Fighting for his card.
No kidding. I'm sort of with you. And I'm heartened, as Kyle pointed out, that he would make it as concrete as what he ordinarily does, because the Tiger of the past, you never knew until Friday afternoon at 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
The Tiger Woods was going to be in the field, and it was sort of like let's wait, and 4:59 we get the press release. The Tiger's not playing this week. And so I like the concrete aspect of it. I'm with you on thoughts and which events he's going to play. I'm still buoyant, perhaps about Bay Hill, a little lead-in time to the Players' Championship, and then I don't know, maybe something prior to the Masters, or certainly prior to the Open Championship, where you go over there and you've got to get used to a different style of golf. So I'm curious to see what the 8 are. But look, the 4 majors, they go without saying. It's the other events that I'm very interested in, and then the whole signature series thing, right? So Tiger obviously gets an invitation to those, I would guess, because he's not going to qualify his way in there. So I'm curious to see if there's 1 or 2 of those events, like a Memorial or Quail Hollow or something like that, where he's had success before, that he would show up.
Is he in the player? Is he in the players' field?
Former champion, right?
But doesn't that only last for like 10 years or whatever?
I'm not sure. I think it may. I'm speaking under correction, but it may have been reduced to 5. But goodness, it's Tiger Woods, right?
Also, is the other one that I was wondering about is the U.S. Open field. I obviously won the Masters in 2019. I think that's a 5-year deal into the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
But there's been instances where guys have gotten.
Yeah, they reserve the right to give extra invitations.
Yeah. And that would be obviously no problem. Patrick, here's the quote. He said, as far as team golf, so he was asked about team golf and its place in the future ecosystem. So when I hear team golf, I just presume we're kind of talking about LIV. I think there's a way in which we can all benefit from team golf. It's just how do we do it? We're trying to figure out that process now. We've been doing it for months, trying to figure out how that all works. What does the landscape even look like, and where do we play? So this is the part that kind of piqued my interest. Where do we play, and what impact does it have on our PGA Tour schedule? So you're like, oh, you're trying to seemingly fit in some different things with the normal PGA Tour schedule. I think that's something that we have focused on and we don't take lightly. Did that pique your interest as well, or am I reading too much into that?
I think it did. And another quote he had, which was pretty similar to that, was murky. He was talking about the murky waters of the future of the professional landscape and the PGA Tour, and whether it meant it was going to merge with LIV, or whether team golf was still going to be relevant, whether that's LIV Golf or even the TGL for all we know. There's some team golf involved there. And look, I've said all along, I kind of think there's going to be some sort of team aspect with, the Saudi Arabian PIF and the PGA Tour merging together, whether that means, championship style league, Champions League type style thing, where the best players in the world have a team event once a month, once every couple months, something along that. And they kind of travel around to different parts of the world. That's what I envision. I don't know if it's going to come to fruition at all, but I think Tiger seemed very frustrated about, obviously, the lack of what's the word I'm looking for, from Jay Monahan.
Communication.
Yeah, communication from Jay Monahan, and he seemed to be a little frustrated with the pace of the progress of the negotiations. He would like for those to pick up. He says there's a lot of options on the table, whether that means from Fenway Group, the Saudi Arabian PIF, other private equity firms. And he mentioned that he does believe a deal will be done of some sort, and whether that is by the year-end deadline or not, he can't really say at the moment. But I think it was really enlightening to hear him talk about it, because, we haven't heard really anyone talk about it with as much detail as Tiger just did.
Well, look, I'm going to address the elephant in the room some. Once the offer, or once the connection was made with Yasser, and there's all this money at the table, whether this merger goes ahead, or whatever you want to call the thing, or whether it doesn't, that money is all too enticing for the PGA Tour to turn aside. So they're going to find a way. So what Tiger just kind of admitted to today was, there's going to be some sort of a injection of funds here, and it's just, how does LIV become the beneficiary there of their their investment in the PGA Tour. And you speak of Fenway. I mean, truth is, like, Jay Monahan could go back to Boston as like the mayor, and the Fenway group would welcome him with open arms. So the future is cloudy, murky. I know this for sure. I mean, I don't know on this is just a gut feel, but I feel like I know this like gospel, that there will be live investment in the PGA Tour somehow, some way, even if it's funneled through another organization or something.
Yeah, I think I think you're right, Mark. I think once you start to see that those sweet zeros pile up, it's difficult to turn away from that, right? And I think that what's going to be really interesting, Patrick, is because Tiger talked a lot about this on Tuesday. He's like, he was basically trying to reclaim the PGA Tour for the players. Like, this is our league. How many times did he say that this can't happen again, alluding to what he felt like was Monahan and Jimmy Dunn and Ed Hurley going behind the players' backs, which to them was like they just kind of had to keep it secret. I don't know what those conversations were, but Tiger was like, hey, this is our league, this is our league, this is our league. But part of what's going on here with the negotiation is they're creating a separate entity that is very much not a nonprofit, not a member organization. To me, it seems more like a regular for-profit corporation that you're getting private equity into. And so how does that affect, and this is one of my big questions in general, even more so now after Tiger talked, how does that affect the control that the players have over the future of what this organization does? And I don't know if they know that. I don't know if anybody knows that, but I think that is one really interesting aspect to all of this.
I just want to add to that. I'm not so sure. Now, again, I don't know. I'm just kind of, picking up, reading tea leaves a little bit. I'm not so sure Liv is actually interested in being involved in PGA Tour tournaments. I really don't think so. They are certainly after all the PGA Tour properties, the Top Golfs and all that sort of stuff where, they can turn investment into dollars back, as opposed to I'm giving money to the tour to run events and I don't know how I'm going to get some money back out of this. Live are in it for profit. There's no doubt in my mind about that. So I'm also, like you, Kyle, keen to see how the whole future transpires. But I know that they've got designs on other interests and not necessarily PGA Tour events and tournaments.
Patrick, did Tiger talking on Tuesday make you more or less confident than yesterday that the public investment fund is going to be a part of this?
I'd say more. I think I was always rather confident that the public investment fund was going to be a part of it some way, shape, or form, just based on Rory McIlroy's comments on it, Jay Monahan's comments on it as well, where, look, the name of the game right now is kind of unifying everyone. And you know what? That kind of comes with a lot of cash too. So it's a win-win from the PGA Tour's perspective to have a deal with the Saudi PIF, because you know what? They've already okayed it back in June 6th. And if they backtrack now, they'll just look that much more dumb.
Well, I want to say on the heels of your observation that Liv has essentially empowered the players way more. And look, the blue chips, the superstars were always going to get their due. But then you get the level of player that's not necessarily a star, but they're one of the PGA Tour's best. And they're like, where's my money? Kind of thing. And so all of a sudden they're in a place where they can command bigger fees. And so you have the advent of the TGL and these things to somehow get the money to these folks, the PIP deal. And so now you got guys shouting and screaming about what they do. And all the tour can do is just pay them the money. So they're going to have to get the money from somewhere. And so that's why I have this gut feel that I do, because, you're going to have Xander Schauffele's and those sorts of guys of the world going, come on now, I want to make some of this money too. What's going on? So I think there's an element of that to it as well.
Yeah, the one thing I'm really looking more into the future and whether Live and PGA Tour does coexist is, they're still throwing mud across the aisle at each other while these negotiations are going on. There's the rumors of John Rahm obviously going to Live. They have the Live promotions event where the PGA Tour reportedly, first they weren't going to suspend players. Now reportedly they are going to suspend players for playing in that December 8th in Dubai, that pseudo Q school that they have going on for Live. So even if they are negotiating, even if I think we all agree Live and the PIF are going to be involved, it's quite odd that they're still throwing mud at each other.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. The whole thing, because it seemed like when they came to the original agreement in June that it was kind of a ceasefire, truce. Like, hey, we'll pick up we'll start slinging mud after all this is over. But between now and December 31st, we're not going to, and that's kind of all gone. I mean, what happened to the clause about how they couldn't? Actually, I think I read that clause went away. The clause about how they couldn't negotiate with anybody on either side until they reached an agreement. That clause went away, right, Patrick?
Yeah, they removed it due to antitrust concerns.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, it has been interesting. What's your take on the Rahm stuff, Patrick? I don't think we've talked since that, like some of that smoke started emanating during, I guess, right before Thanksgiving last week.
I have personally said I've never been offered astronomical amounts of money with numerous zeros to it. I think you would be dumb not to consider it, no matter, the moral background or the principles you have. I think once you see a check right in front of your face for that amount, it is hard to not look at it and think of your future, your family's future, your grandchildren's future, all that. So if the dollar figures out there are correct and Jon Rahm thinks it's his best interest, he obviously has that 5-year exemption from the Masters. He's at the top of his game right now. He has no reason to believe otherwise that he can't bag another major championship in the next 20 attempts and kind of prolong his stay on the major championship stage. So if it's true, so be it. And, good for him for collecting that money. I'd be a little disappointed just because of how measured and well-balanced he has been on the whole live golf drama. And, I thought he would, I always think that he would stay on the PGA Tour, but if it proves otherwise, then kudos to him for securing the bag.
Yeah, listen, everybody's incentivized by money. I think that Rahm has a lot of it, and I think that he is probably less incentivized than others by money. I think for the most part, he has seemed to be incentivized by what we would call the right things, or like the pure things in sports, which is championships and winning and different things like that. You're right. It is a lot of money. Here's what I think, Patrick. I think he's actually, if this were to happen, which I've heard so many different things behind the scenes about whether it will or won't, I think he would be more incentivized. I don't think he's a big fan of like the Tiger, Rory, JT sort of, group chat
Boys Club
cabal. I think he's kind of out on that. And this to me would be more of a like, yeah, I'm good on your little, ring that you've got going on there. Like, I don't, and this is like way like big time reading between the lines, just trying to piece some stuff together on my part. I don't know that to actually be true. And he's made comments the other way too, where he likes and appreciates those guys. But there's always been this kind of undercurrent of like eye rolling that I get from him at the Rory, Tiger, JT stuff. And those guys are obviously entrenched on the PGA Tour side. So to me, that almost would be more of an incentive of like going off on and doing your own thing than, and the money would obviously be great, but that to me would be more of a prod than maybe even the money.
I'm feeling where you're going there. Because look, he pulled himself out of the TGL as well. He's like, nah, you guys can be doing your Monday evening golf or whatever it is. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't need the money. So that sort of says to me that money isn't an incentive, but I don't care who you are. Just to look at this, not from a name perspective, but from a pure business perspective, because these golfers are enterprises. And if you're leading some organization, you're the CEO, and you get a call saying, hey, we want to merge with you and give you $600 million, you'd be a fool not to listen. I don't care how devout your belief system is. So I'm certain, look, he's had overtures for a while now, Rahm, from the Live people, and they've been coming after him for a bit. And with Sergio and him being buddies, and with Rahm's beef in the Ryder Cup thing, and Sergio and company not being eligible to play, I can see some of that, and I can see some of the frustration, and I can see him, because I know him, just venting his frustration, because Rahm is a communicative kind of a guy. But something deep down inside also says to me is like, No, I've heard your offer. I'm going to continue to do what I'm doing. It's easier for me to travel when I live out in Arizona. I'm going to do the West Coast because it's easy, and I'm going to do the big events in the States because it's easy. I don't think Jon Rahm is that interested whatsoever in traveling around the globe down to Australia and company. I don't care how much people talk about growing the game. He'll do his share in Europe, and he'll play the Spanish Open, and he'll play the BMW Championship and that stuff. But again, even though it's 14 events or whatever it is, growing, I'm told, that's a lot of travel, even though it's $600 million.
Yeah, I think what Mark is saying is probably where he's at of like kind of weighing
yeah,
both sides of it. Like, well, like the what's the gif of what's his name from David from Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I don't know.
Thanks for the help, guys. Where he's like weighing one side and the other. I think that's where Rahm is at right now. It'll be interesting to see or to hear him talk about it next time he has a press conference or is at a tournament.
I think for a minute, just toss this one out there. Give me a guess on what the net worth of Jon Rahm is, and it's growing. It's trending upwards, certainly. So, I mean, the guy's worth hundreds of millions of dollars as it is. Maybe he isn't. I don't know.
It seems like he would be.
Yeah. So I mean, when you start to get into like 150 million versus 600 million, I don't want to say it's a wash, but they're making so much off interest and investments and sponsorships and stuff anyway. It's like the number of zeros at the end of your bank account is almost immaterial until you become a billionaire. Then you make a special list like a Woods. So I'm not so sure that, look, 600 sounds cool. It's like a flex. But he's got so much money, he can decide to do whatever he pleases, and still he could never hit another golf shot in his life. And his family and their family's family and generations to come will be sorted out.
Larry David. Also, these guys don't have time they don't have the time to spend all the money, right, Mark? I mean, I heard JT on, I think it was on No Line Up a couple years ago, and they were like, "What do you do with all the money that you've made?" And he's like, I travel so much and I am playing golf so much that I barely have time to think about spending it. I get a nicer bottle of wine. Like that's about it, And I think that, I don't know. We don't need to go too far down this rabbit hole, but I think the whole thing is interesting.
That is such a cool take. I'll never forget way back in the day, I was working with a young PGA Tour professional, right? And he said to me, "You know what's so curious? Now I'm on the tour. I show up and I open my locker and there's shoes and there's balls and there's all this stuff that I used to have to pay for." He goes, "Now I got more money. Now I don't have to pay for that stuff." And that's what the PGA Tour player is. They like that guy who, when they go to the bar, the dinner tab is picked up by someone and the drinks and all the rest of it. So you're right. They get all this money and they just basically invest in ventures like TGL and all this
right.
That they're just using their money as leverage in the end.
Yeah, I think you either buy Top Golf like Rahm has, or you design golf courses like Justin Thomas is starting to do.
Yeah.
So, look, we got to pay our bills as well. And so we're going to be hitting a break here, hearing a word from our partner. But on the other side, we'll be talking Player Impact Program and the Hero World Challenge. Well, the theme of today's episode has been money, so let's continue. The Player Impact Program was leaked, I guess, over the holiday weekend by one Nate Lashley, lamenting on Instagram his dismay at the entire program. But Rory McIlroy, for the first time in his career, wins the PIP, takes home a cool $15 million. Tiger Woods comes in second for the first time. He has now collected $35 million across the 3 Player Impact programs. The rest of the list, Jon Rahm, $9 million, Jordan Spieth, $7 million. Scotty Scheffler rounds out the top 5 at $6 million. Fellas, it looks like the Player Impact program might be getting cut a little bit next year, and some of these paydays might be going away.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a lot of thoughts on this. I don't even know where we want to start.
I'll tee you off, Kyle. The Player Impact Program. I'm now still trying to figure out what these guys are actually rewarded for, because I thought Joel Damon was pretty popular. He became a Netflix star. He's hanging out with all these guys doing these special golf days and stuff. And you're telling me he's not in the top 20 most popular PGA Tour players? And with love to Brian Harmon and even Wyndham Clark to a certain extent, and Patrick Cantlay, that they are making more because of, I don't know, social media, whatever this algorithm is that's created to reward these guys for whatever they do.
Jason Day is a good example. Jason Day has more impact and is more popular than Tony Finau and Colin Morikawa. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe globally.
Yeah, maybe globally. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
I think two things are true here, Patrick. I think one, Nate Lashley was complaining about, is this the best way to spend $100 million? No, but also like one sort of, I think, consequence of a member organization where everybody has one vote and everybody feels like they're equal is that you start to think that you are, and when the reality is that you're not. Like, these are the guys that bring in the revenue, right? And I think it's hard because the tour, like the tour is trying to a little bit have it both ways. What was the phrase last year? Have their cake and eat it too. Like, that's a little bit of what's going on here, where they're trying to be a meritocracy. They're maintaining the meritocracy of like, hey, you go out and earn your money at Memorial or at Colonial or wherever. But also we're gonna make sure that the guys that need to get paid. And I understand the frustration of a Nate Lashley, because that feels a little, to use another word from last year, duplicitous. It feels a little like having it both ways. But I kind of don't blame the tour at the same time, because what were your options? Like, they were put in a situation where it was like, hey, we gotta like figure out how to get some of these guys some guaranteed money. That's essentially what this is, right? We can call it an algorithm or look at all these metrics, but it's really just guaranteed money for your biggest names that you fear leaving for another organization. And I don't blame them in that sense, but also I do sort of blame them because it's like, man, you could not make this more shrouded in secrecy and like more vague in terms of how the money gets distributed if you tried. Like, it's just such a mess. Like, it's a really messy way to reward your stars. And I understand the frustration from guys like Nate Lashley in terms of that point.
Yeah, and Mark, to your point about why someone like Joel Damon, who's super popular with fans, might not be on this list, I believe they took out the social media aspect of it this year. So it's mostly TV appearances, internet searches, just general awareness, which how you measure that, I don't know. Do they go around at a PGA Tour event and just like poll 5 fans, be like, all right, 5 out of 5 know who Rory McIlroy is. Let's put him towards the top. So that kind of harps back to KP's secrecy thing, where some of these ratings could easily be, fudged. I think they took out the Spieth's dad, or his dad runs one of the ratings.
It was the MVP index, which I have no idea what that is, but his dad was like on the board. I think he was a founder of it or something. And that was not a great look, even though I don't think he had like any present day involvement in it. It was still just kind of a bad look. But yeah, they took that out this year.
Yeah, well, look, along those lines too, I can understand Rory, Tiger, Rahm, Spieth, Scheffler, Fowler, Viktor, JT, then Fleetwood and Homer. That is odd to me. Maybe I'm being a bit myopic in that I live in the United States. But then as we look down the list there, I can think of folks also that deserved, I'm going to use that term lightly as well, to perhaps be inside the 20. So I can definitely see, like, if I was a rank and file member of the PGA Tour, I'd have a problem with this. But then somehow I maybe have a moment of clarity or sanity, and I go, well, it's these folks that are drawing the eyeballs to our events, which bring the sponsors to our events, which means I indirectly make more money and I have more money at my disposal. But again, then award 10 folks and say, okay, you 10, we know. 20 is a stretch. I love Cameron Young. I don't think he's moving the needle. So anyway, I'm interested why the money amount was reduced, but it also says to me that maybe that's the tour trying to put the kibosh on this thing to say this is getting out of hand a little bit over here. And we've got to sort of manage where we're going here in the future.
What was your take on it, Patrick?
I think it was a really tough year to be part of the middle lower class of the PGA Tour, between the signature events rolling out to elevated FedEx Cup points in those signature events in 2024, and then something like this as well, which has been around for the past couple years. I understand where Nate Lashley is coming from. I agree with what you said, where there's a lot better uses for $100 million than to pay off 20 guys. But, you know, these are the guys who kind of draw the eyeballs. People are coming to tournaments to watch Rory McIlroy hit booming drives. They're coming to get a piece of Tiger Woods whenever he does tee it up. They're not really going to see Nate Lashley battle to make the cut or tear apart the 16th green at Pebble Beach, whatever it may be. So it's kind of a give and take. I understand his perspective on it, and I agree with some points, but I also disagree with others.
It's hard, right? Golf is so weird, because you look at basketball and you're like, okay, well, who brings in the most money for the Milwaukee Bucks? Like, obviously Giannis, and he gets paid. Like, there's a structure in place that very obviously rewards your ability to generate revenue, right? Like it's very it's very structured. In golf, Jay Monahan, his salary every year, you'll have to correct me on this, Patrick, I think it's like $15 million, right? Jay Monahan doesn't bring in, I should say, Jay Monahan is not the reason people are showing up to events and the reason that revenue is generated. Rory McIlroy, on the other hand, is a person who generates revenue for the PGA Tour. He's guaranteed $0, or he has been up until this point. And that's a very different thing than I think we're used to in modern professional sports. And I think it's something that's kind of beautiful about golf, is that you have to go do it year after year after year. But it's also like in the landscape, and this is such a direct, it's so directly tied to LIV, in that LIV guaranteed these guys money, and the tour's like, oh, crap, like we have no mechanism for that. And this is their very, I think, unelegant mechanism that is just, I understand why they did it. I think there are better solutions to it.
Patrick, I just want to say this for posterity's sakes, maybe. It's always glossed over, but the tour's retirement program for everyone who's a PGA Tour member is ridiculous. And the money that folks are stacking up for every cut that they make is astronomical. And I know golfers who aren't playing anymore that are now announcers that are drawing off that and living just fine. So, yeah, I can understand the tyranny of the urgent as it pertains to this sort of stuff. But everyone on the PGA Tour is doing pretty well. But it's very easy in the human nature to look over the shoulder and go, well, dang, man, look at that guy's just made $2 million in the PIF, and well, what about me, kind of thing. So there's the envy. But, you know, if one does take a minute to just settle down and go, you know, I'm doing pretty well, and along the meritocracy lines, like Kyle points out, if I just play better, I'm going to be doing just fine. Because as we look down that list, Harman and Wyndham Clark, they went on there last year, but now they get PIP money because they won a major championship. That's basically what happened, because those 4 events gobble up the airtime most of the year. And so if you win those, you're going to get searched and you will get more airtime and such. So again, play better and you'll take care of yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely a good problem to have if you're complaining about how 100 million is being divvied up. But we will be done with the money talk, and we got to get to actual golf being played. Ladies and gentlemen, there are 20 men out there in the Bahamas this week for the Hero World Challenge. Obviously, Tiger Woods headlining the field, although he is at the bottom of the odds board. We got world number 1, Scotty Scheffler, in his first start since the Ryder Cup. Will Zalatoris back in action for the first time in 8 months. Viktor Hovland looking for the coveted three-peat. But let's start with Tiger. What are your expectations for Tiger? First start since withdrawing from the Masters back in April. Said his game's a little rusty. He's pain-free. The ankle seems to be better. What's a good week for Tiger Woods in your mind?
Top 20?
For sure. Also could be a bad week. I think anything around par. This tournament's weird, right? Because you're going to see, 60 scoring average is going to be like 67 or something stupid, right? And so you could shoot 70 all 4 days and finish last. I'm just making up numbers right now. I don't know what the actual numbers will be, but it's a fairly open, easy resort type golf course. And so, yeah, I think anything around par. The hard part for Tiger is going to be what he said today, which is that he's rusty. And so you're going to see him probably turn some pars into bogeys, and he'll still make a bunch of birdies. So I would say anything at or under par is going to be a nice little week for Tiger to come back to.
Patrick, I would go a little better than that, but I will acknowledge the fact that, even for Tiger Woods, if you haven't played, and he uses the term rusty, when it starts on Thursday morning, it just feels different. And when you got to hit that shot, that 3-iron with a wind in from the left and water on the right, that feels different too. And the ability to step up there and hit the shot, that is not just a function of practice. That's a function of a certain amount of self-belief. Now, Tiger's got that stuff in gobs. But when you haven't played for a while, you're not really sure. And that seed of doubt can be the biggest swing wrecker. But that all being said, Hero World Challenges of the past down in Albany, the greens have been receptive. The fairways are wide. It's a scoring paradise. So I expect Tiger to have a week where he shoots a few rounds in the 60s. And I was sort of thinking with myself this morning, does he sneak his way in the top 10? I think it's possible. Don't know if it's probable, but the one thing, and I always say this ad nauseum, is that I've made a bet against Tiger Woods one time before, and I came out on the wrong end of the bet. So I'm siding with what Tiger does, because he's allowed information out. Like, look, he's walking better, and there's been no visible stuff of his golf swing and stuff. But I figure he knows what's up. I figure the leg's stronger, and this is a fairly flat golf course. So I think he's going to actually have a decent week. I really do.
Even par would have been 15th last year, 18th the year before that, and 17th in the Hero World Challenge before that. So toward the bottom of the leaderboard, but not. I don't think it would have ever. There's always been somebody or a couple of people that are over par.
I feel like he threatens the top 10. I really do.
Okay,
really, really do.
And you got to remember, this is Tiger Woods. He is the king of underselling and over delivering. So if his game is rusty, maybe it's not as rusty as he's letting off. And as for the comfort in competition, you look at that round 1 tee time, it just happens to be alongside his best buddy, Justin Thomas. So that should help with that a little bit as well. But he's not the only one making a return. Will Zalatoris is back in action after back surgery. We saw him, withdraw from the BMW Championship after he won the FedEx Cup St. Jude back in 2022. Seemed to be back on the road to recovery, but he had to go through that surgery this past spring. He's dropped to world number 33. We talked about the signature events in 2024. One of the qualifying criteria is actually top 30 in the world the week leading into. So, this could be a tournament where Will Zalatoris could push himself inside the top 30 in the OWGR again heading into the new year. But I think we're all just happy Zalatoris is back, and whether his swing changes at all to protect his back, whether his putting gets better, I think are a couple items to keep an eye on.
I had caught wind of the fact that Will was considering playing in the RSM Classic. And that was heartening to me because to come back from the surgery is difficult, but he's young and he's fit and, he's lean. There's got all that stuff going on. I'm more curious to see just the resilience that he has and the ability to sort of stick in there for 4 days straight, because golf is a grueling game mentally and emotionally. So look, I feel like the changes in the golf swing, they have to have settled if the folks are now, or his team are deciding, okay, it's time to roll Will Zalatoris out again. So I'm not too concerned about that. I'm just, interested in how good his reserves are going to be to go 4 rounds. But I guess we'll get a sighter here in a 20-man field.
Yeah, listen, I'm excited about it. I think that He's somebody that we forgot about just because he wasn't playing. Not forgot about, but he just wasn't in the conversation because he wasn't playing this year. And he's a threat. He's proven he's a threat to win any major or really any event that he tees it up for. So to add him back to the conversation in 2024, starting right here is exciting, with the caveat that he can still swing and play like he was before the injury.
Well, someone who didn't forget about Will Zalatoris was Claude Harmon. If you remember, he was quite critical of him in one Golf Week interview. But, in Will Zalatoris' absence, another young gun has risen to the top of the sport. And I think we can all agree he's probably, the best, at least the hottest player in the world at the moment. And that's Viktor Hovland, looking for a three-peat at this tournament. He's clipped Scotty Scheffler in back-to-back years. And he's coming off a runner-up finish at the DP World Tour Championship that was off a 2-month hiatus from the game. He was off in the Nordics, just having fun with his buddies. He comes down to Dubai and he finishes second there to Nikolai Højgaard. And, I think this could be a really nice week for Viktor to put a bow on what has been a career-changing season for him.
Do you think, Patrick, that in your estimation, in your mind, I guess, has Viktor Hovland raised his floor or his ceiling more in 2023?
Oh, that's a great question. I think he has raised his floor. I think his ability to kind of scratch out rounds is a lot more different, where he touched on this a little bit there in Dubai. The first round, he said he hit the ball like crap, but his short game really saved him. And he said, a couple years ago, those rounds would have been in the mid 70s. And now he's making those rounds into 1 under, even par, stuff like that. And I think when you don't have your best stuff and you're still able to get around a golf course effectively, turn a big number into a red, 71, whatever it may be, it just changes your outlook on the game and raises your floor dramatically.
Yeah, amen, brother. I actually spoke with him. I had him on my podcast. And one of the questions I asked him was, look, we've talked about the short game. Everyone's talking about it ad nauseum. What would you say is the big change? And he said, look, no doubt. He said, funnily enough, the changes to the short game have worked anti to how his golf swing worked, because he was always very shallow, which is good for driving the ball and hitting long irons, where he steepened up the short game. So he says he finds his ball striking beginning to wane a little bit now. But now with the short game, he can get by those days, to your observation. But then he said something to me that was interesting, and I perked my ears up when I heard him say it. And he's like, I just feel like I've matured as a player. And he goes, now when I get out there and I perhaps have a slow 9, it's not like I have to feel like I have to fire at flags and stuff. I'm just going to keep playing. I'm not going to short side myself. He goes, because in years past, if I was on the leaderboard and I saw I was 3 back, he's like, all right, I've got to go and shoot 33 on this 9. And then I sometimes aim at flags that I shouldn't. And then I short side myself and I make bogey or double or worse instead of making birdie. He goes, so I'm just hitting the right shot at the right time. I'm playing not cautiously aggressive, but just not stupid. And so he goes, as a result, I know after 4 rounds, almost in the Tiger Woods kind of a mold, that I'm going to be around. And then I laughed at him. I'm like, yeah, just like the BMW championship, right? And he goes, yeah, just like the BMW, where I played solid the first couple of days, didn't make anything. Then all of a sudden, I go crazy over the last 9 holes and I end up winning. So it's been a case of maturity, understanding one's game, improving the short game. But that whole thing to me has made him just so confident in who he is, because now he knows he's arguably right now the best player in the world, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's scary, Mark, when guys can improve that much without improving their skill set. Like he's basically just improved with his mind, and that's terrifying because his skill set is extraordinary.
Yeah, well, you talk about the ball striking skill set. I'll say to you this, and you guys, good golfers, there's nothing more scary for any sort of a decent player, decent to elite, standing over a tight lie, short wedge over a bunker to firm greens. You'd much rather face 5-iron from the middle of the fairway where you can swing away hard, right?
From like 210.
Yeah, exactly. The harder you can go
over water.
But then you start taking away the athlete from the thing, and you make it about skill. The skill of nipping that wedge off the tight lie, the skill of taking the lob wedge when you don't feel like you can do it and doing it anyway. Like I asked him about the pitch shot from behind the first green at the Ryder Cup that he holed.
Yeah.
He joked. He said to me, he goes, Shane Knight told me to putt it. He goes, no, I can do this, man. And then he laughed. I think he goes, I'd never really said that to myself before in my life. But he said, I saw the shot, I hit the shot, it went down the hill, it rolled in. And so all of a sudden, this is different. So you use the term skill set. I would advance that skill set to around the greens because it can get so mental. Think of putting yips and stuff like that, where you got to just somehow get the ball in the hole, no matter whether the thing's looking like a thimble or not. You got to just get up there and get mentally attuned and have the physical technique and know how to be able to pull it off.
So he was saying that he got steeper in his short game.
Yep. He steepened up the downswing in the short game, moved the base of the arc closer to the target. Now that's detrimental to any long shots. So he gets steeper, and that's why he starts whiffing the driver and slicing it too much. But he goes, you know what? I can play this slice, so I'm okay. He had an issue earlier in this progression where when he steepened up the downswing, he started hitting pulls, and that's where there was an issue. But then they figured that out, and now he's got the ball striking in the short game there, and then he's mature, to use his term, and he's on top of the world.
Yeah,
Interesting.
He really is, and I'm sure he'll be making a few of our betting cards here shortly. If Viktor Hovland goes on to win this week, not only will he have the three-peat secured, but it will be 5 years since someone not named Viktor Hovland has won the Hero World Challenge. Henrik Stenson in 2019, the last man, non-Victor division, to claim the coveted Tiger Trophy. Before we get to the best bets, we got one last break for you guys, and then we'll come back.
Well, you need the sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
We are back, and this segment, I don't have my glasses on, so this might be a little tough to read. This best bet segment is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment matter more. Nope, make every moment more. That's going to be a tough one once they see this one. Whatever. We are on to the Hero World Challenge betting board. We got $50 for a matchup, $30 for a finishing position, and two $10 bets on outrights. Mark, I'm going to fire it over to you. What is your matchup this week?
My matchup, I am going with Matt Fitzpatrick, who's played beautifully the last couple of times he's out, over Justin Thomas. Again, you know me, I like to bet positive numbers, and I'm not keen on going for the minus in front of a line. Look, Justin looked better when he played over at the Nedbank Challenge in South Africa, but it still just wasn't completely there. And Matt Fitzpatrick, he's played solidly the last bit, and I just feel like, you know, he's got more complete game than Justin Thomas is. When you start to shoot low, when it's a scoring fest, you got to make putts. And Matt Fitzpatrick, man, the last season I called him a lot, and with that flag stick in, I can't remember a putt that he missed from inside 15 feet. So I'm going with a putter in Fitzpatrick over JT.
I like that. I've got Wyndham Clark over Sam Burns. My reasoning here, Patrick, is it's such a wide open course that I think whatever advantage Burns might have with driver is mitigated by the advantage that Wyndham Clark has with the irons. Clark's turned himself into a really good iron player this year, and I think that he, I think he beats out Sam Burns here.
All right. I am also picking on a member of the boys club like Mark. I'm taking Cameron Young minus 120 over Jordan Spieth. I have no idea what Jordan Spieth has been doing since the Ryder Cup.
Neither does he.
He wasn't great in Rome. He wasn't great to finish off the PGA Tour season. Cameron Young has played, at least. He's flashed a little bit, I think, during the fall. So I'm going to take him minus 120 over Jordan Spieth.
Hey, new baby in the house. That changes stuff, huh?
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly.
Patrick wouldn't know, but yes, it does.
It does.
The non-nappy factor. Kyle's got Wyndham Clark even money over Sam Burns, and Mark has Matt Fitzpatrick even money over Justin Thomas. We are on to the finishing positions, and Kyle, you've got the man who's finished second the last two seasons.
Yeah, best player in the world, finished second the last two seasons. Not super excited that he hasn't played, but a lot of guys haven't played. So I'm going to go with Scotty Scheffler top 5. Don't love the number, but I do love Scotty Scheffler. So that this is kind of his floor, it seems like, in a field this small.
Yes, and who might be considered the second best American in the game at the moment. Mark, who is your top 5 selection?
Max Homa for a top 5. Look, South Africa is very special to me. I'm from there, and when I turned on social media over the break here and I saw he and Justin Thomas safariing back home, I was like, that is so cool. And then obviously I watched the Nedbank Challenge because it's one of my favorite events, and Max just plodded his way around a very difficult golf course and didn't overexert himself and accelerated as he got closer to the tape. It was a masterclass to me in playing a 4-round event where he outlasted a limited field, limited-ish, and he was playing perfectly from tee through green and holding putts. So I feel like that continues. I feel like he's rested after the trip back home. So Max Homa, top 5.
I like that pick. I am going for the sucker play of the week. Tiger Woods, top 10, plus 250. Look, half this field hasn't played in a while. So the rust factor, throw that out the window. I've heard reports that he's flushing the ball at Medalist per some employees there. I think he's underselling his capabilities today. And I think he could finish inside the top half of this field. I don't think it'll be that too big of a stretch for him. So at plus 250, I'm going to take the top 10. Mark is on the top 5 for Max Homa at plus 125, and Kyle's on the top 5 for Scotty Scheffler at minus 140. Now to the big money plays. Outrights, we each get 2 for $10. Kyle, who you got?
Yeah, I've got Hovland again for a lot of the reasons you mentioned. I think he's the best player in the world right now. He's won this event 2 years in a row. Don't love the number, but I do love the way he's playing. And then Ricky Fowler has played actually very well at this golf course. I don't think he was there last year. He's won it before, and he's 22-1, which I think is a little bit too big of a number for how well he's played this year and at this course.
I kind of like the Ricky play. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little disappointed Josh didn't hit the soundbite there, but I understand.
Ricky Fowler.
There we go. And Kyle, you share an outright pick with Mark. Mark, who do you have this week?
Viktor, for all the reasons that Kyle shared, and then I'm going with Max Homa. Look, let's be honest. This time of the year, the guys who are playing in this field, they're watching lots of college football and the NFL. I know I'm in a league with some of them, and then you got Thanksgiving, of course, and then some folks have new little ones in the house. So there's practice, but there's not like practice, you know. And so I feel like you go with the guys who are playing well, and Homer and Viktor are the high watermarks in the field for me. So I'm going with both, even though those numbers are ridiculously low.
Quite the humble brag by Mark. I assume you're winning that fantasy football league, whatever it may be. Hopefully you are. I'm going.
And we're currently tied for the lead. Yep.
Okay, there we go. I'm going with a pair of Americans. Justin Thomas, 18-1. Like Mark said, he played well in South Africa. Even if it wasn't great, he's played well here before. He's someone who likes to impress Tiger Woods. So 18-1 in this field, only 20 players, I thought was a little high. And then Cameron Young, 20-1. I've been a little critical of him throughout the fall, but this just seems like a place where someone who doesn't win wins. So I'm going to go with Cameron Young at 20-1. And so we've got a pair on Viktor Hovland at 4-1. Kyle's also got Ricky Fowler at 22-1. Mark's got Max Homa at 8.5-1, and I'm on JT at 18 and Cameron Young at 20. But that's not all, because producer Josh gives us a little more money, and we have been raking it in all fall long. Mark, we're going to start with you. You need to get a win before the new year comes. I think it's coming. What do you have for your best bet?
Well, look, I finally got a win the last time I played this thing. So we got 1 in a row, 2 makes it a streak. So I'm going to go in a 3-ball, Cameron Young, who I called the RSM Classic for PGA Tour Live, and we had him in feature groups coverage, and he looked good. Wyndham Clark hasn't played in the fall. Brian Harman played down in Sea Island, but looked a little ragged. So I'm going with Cam Young plus wins 160 to beat Wyndham and Harman at the Hero World Challenge.
All righty. And then we've got Kyle, who is up 22%, Mr. S&P himself, Who do you have to for your best bet?
Yeah, that's what they call me back home, is Mr. S&P. Mr. NASDAQ also. I've got Ricky Fowler top 10. He's yeah, like I said, he's played very well here. Minus 115 to finish in the top 10. I think he does so again this year.
I like it. And I am back to the parlays. I'm going with Viktor Hovland and Justin Thomas, both to finish inside the top 10 at plus 102. Hovland, for all the reasons KP and Mark stated. Justin Thomas, I think he's in for a big week. He's finished 5th 3 straight years at this tournament. And a win would put me past Rick by the end of the year, which would be nice little bragging rights. This best bet segment was brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. There we go. We got it right on the second try. Gentlemen, I believe that is all we have. We've talked Tiger. We've talked Rahm. We've talked just about everyone under the sun and a whole lot of money. You guys got anything else before we get out of here?
Nothing. Excited about this weekend.
Me too.
Beautiful. Viewers, make sure to subscribe to Golf on CBS YouTube channel. Leave a 5-star review. Share with your friends, family, and even your enemies. For Kyle Porter at Kyle Porter CBS. For Mark Immelman at Mark_Immelman. I am Patrick McDonald. This has been the First Cut Podcast. We will catch you later.